All right, Council, I'll call our meeting to order for our special council meeting, Wednesday, June 14th, 6 p.m. Second item on our agenda item is the declaration of pecuniary interest. Does any member have a declaration? Councillor Lauder, please.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to declare item 3.3, the land acquisition at 1400 Sandy Bay Road, as pecuniary, potential pecuniary.
And I think you're supposed to provide an explanation as to why you're...
The second part of the recommendation cites that we want to negate the extension, and such could be perceived as me. This Beeford 1400 property is directly behind my property, and as such, any action stopping him from what he wants to do may be perceived as me acting against him.
Understand. So you're neighbors. So we've got that. So thank you very much. So we will bring that to the attention, Stacey, at the right time to remind me. Thank you for that. Any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I'll look for a mover and seconder for the following motion: that in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene procedural bylaw 2016-08, the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene move into an in-camera session to discuss the security of the property of the municipality or local board, which is item number 2, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that's items number 3 and 4 in tonight's agenda. Mover, Councillor Leroux. Seconder, please, Councillor Rawson. Any questions or comments? Our clerk, Stacey, please. Yes.
Sorry, Your Worship. I also there also another reason that we just noticed is not listed there is for educational workshop and training in terms of the presentation from Ontario Provincial Police.
Okay, I'll pencil that in. The mover and seconder are fine with adding that particular item. Okay, we're fine with that. Then all in favor? Okay, and we'll move into the in-camera session. I remind council that no microphones are allowed. Live stream will continue. There'll be a sign up there that we are in camera, but please don't use the microphones, and that's for presenters as well. So thank you for that. Alrighty, Stacy, do you want to take down our sign for in camera, please? Yeah, we still got to vote, though.
What's that?
We still got to vote on these.
No?
Yeah. Alrighty, so I'll look for a mover and seconder so that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene rise from in-camera session with a report. Mover and seconder, Councillor Rawson, Councillor Mayotte, thank you. All in favor? We'll rise from in-camera with that report. And the first item in front of us was 3I, and it's moved by Councillor LaRue, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene Procedural Bylaw 2016-08, the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene, oh, sorry, that's that one we moved in, sorry, beg your pardon. Got them mixed up. Here we go. Moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded, no, that's that one, okay. There we go, I got the first one here. So I need a mover and seconder for this one. A mover and seconder for is that the presentation from Detachment Commander Andrew Ferguson in the Forensic Identification Services Sector, closed circuit television cameras be received, I guess. Councillor Rawson, Councillor LaRose. All in favor of that motion? That is approved. And move on to the next one. Moved by Councillor Mayotte, seconded by Councillor LaRue, which is an update, offer to purchase a portion of the town-owned land municipally owned known as 107 Robert Street West, be referred back to staff for further review, including ingress and egress access to the property. Final comments, questions on that one? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. And I need a mover and seconder for the following motion. That the request purchase price, $20,000 excluding closing and legal fees for the required parcel of land at 1400 Sandy Bay Road be approved. And finally, that the property owners be notified that a consent extension cannot be granted. Councillor LaRue, seconder for this. Councillor Levy. And we should note for the record that Councillor Lauder has declared a pecuniary interest on this particular matter and won't be participating in the discussion. Any final discussion or comment? Councillor LaRose, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just I would like to caution council on when we're thinking about this. When we translate those numbers into some of the other parcels of land that we've dealt with, the one in question would be at least, because of the difference in the square footage of land, would make that one probably 3.5 times what we turned down. So it has huge consequences for us. So I just want to make sure that we're aware of that.
Thank you for those comments. Any other final comments? I'll just speak in favor of the motion. I'll be voting to support the motion. Just simply, I take comfort in when we hire professionals in to evaluate properties, do assessments for us. This is what they do 7/24, 365. So I'm taking comfort, and that's for that reason I will be supporting the motion, not in any way diminishing the considerations of others of members of council for sure. So I'll call for the vote on this one. All in favor? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? And that is carried 4-3, so that motion is approved. And again, for the record, Stacey, Councillor Lauder did not participate. Question period from the medium public. Seeing we had the door shut, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any questions from the medium public. Announcements or inquiries? Any member council have announcement or inquiry? Seeing none, we're on to reports from in-camera meeting held. Yeah, that shouldn't be there is what I thought. So I need a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Rawson, Councillor Levy, and all in favor? And we are adjourned at, I think it's 6:48 p.m. And we'll reconvene council at 7 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. All righty, council, I'll call us to order at 7 o'clock. So welcome, everybody. We've got some folks in the audience here today and those who are watching us live stream, and I guess those who on a Friday evening might flip to Rogers and watch us there. So thanks so much for tuning in and listening in and participating in our council and what's happening in our wonderful town. I'll ask council to join me in the council commitment, please. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here to assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of June 14, 2017 be approved as presented. Any comments or questions on this particular item? I think Councillor Levy, you wanted to ask Councillor leave to have somebody speak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Kate Campbell of Owen Street is in the audience tonight, and she was hoping she could have a few minutes and make a very brief statement about the urban slide. So I would ask Council's leave to have Kate speak to us for a few minutes.
Okay, so the issue in front of us, Kate, is that it needs to be on the official agenda for somebody to speak, but with 2/3 of council agreeing with Councillor Levy, we can allow that to happen. So I'll call show of hands. 2/3 is required to allow Kate to speak. So I've got that. Okay, good. We'll add Kate to the agenda. Thank you so much. All right, and then all in favor of the agenda as suggested, and that is carried. Alrighty then, so we do have any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from any member of council. Seeing none at this time, if you find yourself in that spot as we move along, let us know and we'll address it appropriately. We'll move on to presentations, and we have a first presentation to the Garden Club, and I'll do that, and then Kate, I'll add you as 5B to that as well. So that's where we'll do that presentation. So I'll go up to the podium for the other presentation. So pretty happy to be here again to present a check to our Penetanguishene Garden Club, which is formerly the Penetanguishene Horticultural Society, which is a group of community members who meet throughout the year to educate themselves and the community about all things related to horticulture and the environment. The annual grant from the town of Penetanguishene allows the Garden Club to purchase more flowers and shrubs for the gardens throughout our community. Through this, the club has created a sense of community through all things green, and certainly on behalf of Town Council and all our citizens, I certainly thank you for what you do. It's a small check, a small amount of $1,000 that I would argue we probably get 100-fold out of your efforts. You're out there planting with us last week with council here for summer gardens. You're out for the tulip garden, and you're everywhere we need you to be all the time. So great work, a great group, and so Bonnie and if you want to come up and accept the check, and Dorothy, and then if you wish to say a few words on behalf of the Horticultural Society, the podium is yours.
Well, on behalf of our group, I would like to say thank you very much. We certainly appreciate your help in keeping our club going. We're a small town, and we've only got 60 to 70 members at any given time. And for them to come out and volunteer and help do the Main Street and the cenotaph and the town dock, we really appreciate it. And as you know, everyone's getting older, and some can't bend over, some can't do this, but we managed to get it done, and everybody has a good time, and it's well worth it, and we're happy to do it for the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you want to separate?
All right, and if I get Councillor Mayada and Councillor LaRue to join me for the presentation as well as our chairs of Recreation and Community Services. We'll take a high shot, Mike. Good. Ladies in the middle, so they can be the roses. We'll be the thorns. Over this way. Where are we going? Not too high, that's terrific. Oh, yes. Dorothy, stand up. Everybody ready? Thank you very much. We'll go on to 5B, which will be a presentation from Kate Campbell regarding the urban slide on Owen Street. So, Kate, the podium's yours. And welcome.
And first of all, thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak, especially not being on the agenda. I'm a little nervous. Usually I'm speaking to a classroom of kindergarten students, not Council. It's my first time. I live on Owen Street on the lower hill portion where there's no sidewalks. Our road was closed in the winter as well for the Toboggan Hill, and the residents of the lower portion voiced their opposition to Toboggan Hill. It was Family Day weekend. I had to cancel plans with family members. My father wasn't able to visit his only grandchild on the weekend because he couldn't access the hill, but the event still went on. So now there's an even larger event being moved to our road, from my understanding, because of the construction on Main Street. That's no longer taking place. Unfortunately, it hasn't been revisited, what's what I've been told, and it's not being moved back to Main Street. So I can speak on my situation. I'm not going to speak on other people's situation who aren't here, but obviously I'm going to be 9 months pregnant, in a high-risk pregnancy at the time. I'm delivering in Aurelia, and I will require immediate access to my home and driveway. My husband, who works on that Friday that it will be closed, one of the days, he leaves really early in the morning. I have my 2-year-old daughter that I have to then get to daycare. I'm not able to walk to a municipal lot to do that. And it's also my daughter's second birthday that weekend. So we have a large driveway. We live on the hill going down. We're not even able to have our family and friends over to our home to celebrate. We have elderly family members. My father's 79. He's not going to be able to access our home. Family members with cancer who would just drive and park in our driveway. And I'm not able to have the party at a different location because I can't physically get out to that location at that time. The noise that I've heard that will be all night setting up and taking down this event is going to greatly affect my family, my toddler daughter, my husband and I, and during the day it's a residential area and she does nap. The property damage, that there's no sidewalks on the lower portion of thousands of people going up and down the hill. Just the zoning of a commercial event on a residential street. So no residents were consulted in the planning of this. However, the church was consulted, the curling club was consulted, the business association downtown was consulted, and residents were given a letter saying that it's up to us to find our own parking on a municipal lot. Immediate fire and ambulance access to our homes, like immediate, is now blocked, and we haven't been given a plan of what that access would look like. And legally, it's illegal to completely block a residence or anyone from their private property. I know there's often events like triathlon has gone on that hill before, but I've always been able to access my home still. I've never been completely blocked from my home, and at this time, it's really frustrating. So I really hope that council reconsiders moving it back to Main Street. I've had business owners approach me saying they liked it on the street and would like it to return as well.
Thank you for those comments. Any questions for Kate in this particular one? I will ask Garcia, because there is a next steps in terms of this conversation. So I know there's a meeting coming up on Monday with the residents. We'll actually capture your input here. I know you're at school that day. And then, Jeff, what happens after that in terms of that meeting, getting back to council and further discussion at this end?
Thank you, Your Worship. In terms of, from a process perspective, staff have coordinated a meeting with residents of Owen Street that are impacted for Monday afternoon, where we will hear the concerns from residents on Owen Street. I think we've heard a number of their concerns. We are working at a staff level with 365 Sports through a number of these concerns and have a number of solutions and workarounds in place from our perspective. Further, on Tuesday, there is an operations meeting, which is very common with all these types of events, where we do bring all departments together to have a thorough discussion about having a plan in place. This really just complements the discussions from a staff level that took place in advance of bringing forward the request with options and a recommendation to council regarding Owen Street. In terms of process after that, I should also comment that there will be a representative from 365 Sports in attendance on Monday when we do meet with the residents of Owen Street. In terms of process after that, should it be the will of council to reconsider the decision of location, then it would have to go through the notice of reconsideration or a motion to reconsider because council has essentially via staff options and via a staff recommendation that this is the location that staff have been planning and banking on for a number of weeks and quite a long time. So there's been a number of things coordinated and a number of plans made, and the ball has been advanced down the court quite significantly on this particular item. So hopefully that gives a sense of where we're at and what's to take place in the future.
Okay, in terms of council engagement, just so we can reverse the clock here a little bit. So this event is July 24,
28th and 29th.
28, 29. Council recesses for summer when?
The last meeting that is scheduled is June 28th, which is essentially 2 weeks from this evening. We are at a staff level, and this is very preliminary, but we are discussing the potential need to have a special meeting, pending a few things that take place in kind of early to mid-July for at least one or two items that we may need that are pressing and that emergent require some emergent attention.
Okay, so thank you. So the message there is if a member of council wants to engage in a motion to reconsider, there's some time and a clock for that to happen. So that would be, we'd have to do that under the rules of engagement. But I appreciate you coming tonight. I know it's never difficult, but often talking to council is very much like talking to a kindergarten class, so you can take some comfort in that as well. But anyways, we certainly appreciate you coming out, appreciate the feedback and your input. Moving on to item number 6, moved by Councillor Saunders, second by Councillor Rawson, that the following minutes of the council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Special Council, May 24, 2017. Council, May 24, 2017. Committee of the Whole, May 24, 2017. Any comments, questions, errors, or omissions noted on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is consideration of report in Committee of the Whole. And the first one in front of us is Recreation and Community Services, and moved by Councillor Leroux, seconded by Councillor Mayotte, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Recreation and Community Services be approved. Any member of council wish to pull any of these items for further debate or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those are approved. Next one in front of us is Planning and Development, and it's moved by Councillor Lauder, second by Councillor Levy, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Planning and Development Services section be approved. Does any member of council wish to pull any of these items? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Those are approved and carried. Moving on to Transportation and Environmental Services, moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by Councillor LaRose, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Transportation and Environmental Services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried. The last one before us is Finance and Corporate Services, moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? Councillor Rawson, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. Item 9B2 regarding the tax rates.
B2, okay. Any other ones to be pulled? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those are carried. And Councillor Rawson, over to you on 9B2, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a lengthy discussion last council 2 weeks ago regarding this item. I spoke out about the tax rate was already settled at 2.4%, and it was discussed about increasing it by 0.9% above that. I spoke out against that. I just wanted to mention that again tonight. So I'm opposing that again tonight, and just want to bring that forward for further discussion.
Thank Thank you very much. Any other discussion on this particular item? We did have a healthy debate last time, and just for those in attendance, the 0.9 increase was really to allow us to drive forward another $200,000 into the bank on an annual basis to maintain our capital assets, our roads and infrastructure. So that was kind of the debate that carried on. All right. So are you looking for a motion on this, Councillor Rustin, to be received, or are you looking for somebody to second challenge the decision? The motion's fair game if you want, or we just receive it for information. It's fine, okay. All right, so then I'll need a mover and seconder to receive this for information then, please. Yeah, exactly, yeah, so we still need to receive it for information, or back as presented. Still need a mover, so we need to get this in there, so to receive this as the rest, to approve it as the rest of the recommendations. So Councillor Lauder, Councillor Levy, all in favor? Carried. Sorry, opposed? There we go, and carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, matters for consideration. We have one item in front of us, Sustainable Severance Sound, which is a memorandum. Does anybody wish to pull this for discussion? Okay. I'll just receive that for information. Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just a little confused. If we receive it, are we going to go ahead with the proclamation as suggested in the memorandum, or should it be pulled for discussion?
I don't have a motion for it, Councillor Lauder, so why don't you pull it and put a motion in front of us?
Yes, please, I will pull it.
Okay. Thank you very much. So go ahead, the floor is yours, and then we can make a mover and seconder.
Thank you, Worship. As part of the sustainability severance sound, there's a memorandum being placed forward that the week of, I believe it's next week, so it's June 19th to the 25th, be proclaimed as Pollinator Week. There's been a decrease in the butterflies, the monarchs especially, and also the honeybees, which are great pollinators, and we desperately need them. I fully respect that being a town, we're not quite as it's not quite on everyone's the front of everyone's mind, but certainly in the townships and in the countryside, pollination is something that drives literally all of our agriculture and all of our gardening and our beauty. It's tremendously important. So the Sustainable Severance Sound has requested that we proclaim that next week be Pollinator Week, and then on top of that, that the our clerk demonstrates some advertisements and whatnot, and just general information and education through our website and in our general Facebook social media to the public.
Okay, so Stacy, can you get maybe clerk up a motion for us on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe there is a motion included in the memorandum from the organization. I can read it.
If you could, I don't have the file open, Stacy.
No problem.
So if you could, please.
So they're requesting that the Sustainability Committee recommends that our partner councils support National Pollinator Week, June 19th to 25th, 2017, and encourage residents to participate in community activities and take personal action to help protect pollinators.
Thank you very much. So I think that's moved by Councillor Lauder. Seconder for that, Councillor LaRue. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. All right, and then we'll move on to item number 9, motions of which notice has been previously given. We have none. Moving on to item number 10, notices of motion. And we do have one. I've got one moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Levy, that Schedule A of the bylaw 26-39 be amended as follows. Section 7, burn permits annual calendar year fee be set at $25, that any burn permits purchased in 2017 for $50 prior to this amendment be provided a credit towards a 2018 burn permit, and that'll come up for discussion 2 weeks from now. Any other notices of motion? Councillor Rawson, sorry, voice.
Thank you, Worship. A motion bring forth by myself and second by Councillor Levy that the pavilion at Rotary Champlain-Wendat Park be closed to any reservations and bookings moving forward, and that the current reservations for 2017 remain as scheduled. and the clerk has that.
Okay, thank you very much, and will that again come up for discussion 2 weeks from now. Alrighty, moving on to sorry, my motions are my agenda and the numbering on the motions are a little bit different, but I think we'll be all right. Moving on to confirmation bylaws. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaws, 2017-38 and 2017-39, that the bylaws be read a first time, deemed to be read a second time, a third time, and carried.
So, Your Worship, there's actually an additional bylaws to be read, and I'm not sure why they're not appearing on your motion. Just to clarify, they are 2017-38, 2017-39, 2017-40, 2017-41, 2017-42. They do appear on the agenda, but for some reason they're not on your motion.
Okay, so the motion as adjusted. Does anyone wish to pull any of these bylaws for discussion? See none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those are carried. And we'll just adjust that motion correctly after the fact. Stacey, please. Agenda item number 12, questions periods from the media and public. Any questions from the media? Good. Elizabeth, you good back there? You're good? Okay. Any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to announcements and inquiries. Does any member of council have an announcement or inquiry? CEO Lees.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know I'm not a member of council, but wanted to take this opportunity to introduce to council as well as members of the public. Today, I think, marks day 5 for our new shared Director of Human Resources, Health and Safety. So Connie Devlin is with us. Connie's sitting at the end of the table over there, so give a little wave. So as council and the public knows, Connie is an employee of the Township of Georgian Bay, but will be sharing her time with the Town of Penetanguishene. Connie is an HR professional with 14 years of human resources and health and safety experience, 4 of which is in the municipal sector with Georgian Bay, and prior to that she worked in the college and healthcare sector. She's a graduate of the HR post-grad program at Sheridan College. She's a member of the Human Resources Professional Association, and particularly the local Barrie chapter. In her spare time, she likes to or enjoys chauffeuring her 2 children around to sports activities. And an interesting note is that some of her father's family actually settled in this area and had a house on Fox Street, which is no longer there. So I suppose we could call Connie one of the Penetanguishene individuals. And just so we certainly welcome Connie with open arms, and we look forward to the model that we have with Georgian Bay. And just of note as well, today the Town of Penetanguishene's HR assistant employee that will be reporting to Connie, a lady by the name of Amy Seymour, started today, and again she'll be sharing her time between both municipalities. So welcome aboard, Connie, and we look forward to having you join us.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, welcome aboard, Connie. All right, any other announcements or inquiries? Seeing none, then I'll go to our confirmation bylaw. So it's moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that confirmation bylaw 2017-43 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Council's adjourned at 7:25 p.m. And we'll move on next to our Committee of the Whole meeting, and I'll call us to order for that. And I'll need a mover and seconder to approve tonight's agenda, please. Councillor Rawson, seconder. Councillor Leroux. Comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Then all in favor? And the agenda is approved. Any member of council have a declaration of pecuniary interest in this particular one? Councillor Rawson, please.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm going to declare a conflict on item 7C3, a planning issue. And I'm involved with a real estate transaction, falls within the designated lands.
Okay, 7C3. Okay, got it here. We'll note that. Thank you so much for that. Any other declaration of pecuniary interest? Okay, if you find yourself in that position as you move along, let us know, and we'll address it appropriately. Next section is item 4, items of reference, which we have none. So the next one in front of us is section A, 5A, Transportation and Environmental Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you, Worship. 5A is matters for consideration. One is a verbal update from the director regarding the Main Street Sewage Treatment Plant project. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since the day of the last update to council 2 weeks ago, our contractor on site has been busy working in completing the deficiencies in terms of electrical, mechanical, and metal cladding that are remaining on the project. Once that is completed, we'll have our electrical contractor, Walker's Electric, on site to address the electrical deficiencies remaining on the contract.
Thanks, Brian. Any members have any questions for Brian on this item? Seeing none, thank you. Number 2 is the award of the Ojibwe Landing Ecological and Human Health Risk Assessment RFP. It's recommended that the proposal submitted by EXP Engineering Services be approved to complete the Ecological and Human Health Risk Assessment for the Ojibwe Landing Brownfield for a price of $87,338.60 plus HST. A mover. Councillor Rose, seconder. Councillor Saunders. And Brian, if you can present this for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report in front of council tonight is for the award of the completion of a ecological and human health risk assessment for the Ojibwe Landing Brownfield. This project is a 2017 capital project for the Public Works Department, and it's to address a risk assessment at a historic landfill site known locally as the Ojibwe Landing Brownfield site. And we issued a proposal, or RFQ, or RFP document for the completion of this work. We received 8 proposals on the closing date. Our asset manager, Emily Agar, and manager of capital projects, Jeff Hamlin, who's in the audience tonight, completed the evaluation of the proposals, and through the proposal scoring scheme, evaluating both the technical aspects of the project and the financial aspects of the project, EXP has been recommended. And if there's any further questions from council on the proposal scoring, Jeff Hamlin is here in the audience tonight to answer any of those questions.
Thanks, Brian. Any members have any questions regarding this item? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Saunders. For these risk assessments, the time period can be anywhere between 18 and 24 months completion.
So we should not expect to address those issues with the new council?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Any other members have any questions, comments on this item? Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, I'm just wondering, at the conclusion of this study, will that tell us what we need to do for that piece of land, or what it can be done to that land?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor LaRose, the completion of a human health or ecological and human health risk assessment is the next step in this process to determine what can be done on the property. The alternative to doing a human health and ecological risk assessment is the complete and total rehabilitation or mediation of the property. The estimate for that after the completion of our Phase 2 ESA was $8.9 million, and that did not include dewatering, which could factor into the millions of dollars as well. So this is an alternative to complete, to see what can be done on that property. Council last year directed staff to consider a mixed commercial use on this property. So that is what the basis of this human health and ecological risk assessment will be based on.
Any further questions? We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That item is carried. Number 3 is the Public Service Request Software Program. It's recommended that the report be received for information and that the implementation of a Public Service Request Software package be brought forward for council consideration during the 2018 budget process. And finally, that the addition of a new full-time position to address the staffing requirements of the system also be considered by council during the 2018 budget process. I know this has been on our referrals for some time, and staff have done a great job in this report. I'll let Brian articulate this more clearly, but a lot of times when citizens are putting in requests and inquiries on work orders, this is to have two-way communication and follow through on what's the status of that work order. So let Brian articulate more clearly what this is and where we're going. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you indicated, this is Public Works staff, the Public Works Administrative Assistant, and the clerk reviewed 3 software packages, which are outlined in the report. All 3 software packages, one of which the town of Midland actually has implemented and is currently using. They have similar features and functionality. They are both, all 3 of them are web-based programs, so they can be used on tablets. Anywhere there's an internet connection, you can have access to this software program for staff and residents alike. The comparison of all 3 software packages has been appended to the report, so it gives you an idea of what each software package provides. As you can see, there's very similar characteristics in all 3 of them. One software package, Main Boss Advanced, we're actually using, the Public Works Department is currently using the basic package. That's one software package that could be looked at in the future. What the recommendation is looking at right now is that the implementation of the software package be looked at during the upcoming budget process, and also in consultation with Midland Public Works staff and the actual developers of the software package. There's also a staffing request that goes along with that, which would also tie into the service review that's currently going to be initiated by the town staff this coming summer and fall. So I can see this tying in directly to that study.
Thanks, Brian. Any members have any questions for Brian on this item? Mayor Marshall.
Thank you. So I guess I'm looking for maybe to the CEO, Chair Ross, on this particular one. So we're doing an operation review. So, it depends on the service level standards that council sets as to the staffing requirements that Brian's going to need. So it's one thing to say we're going to return 90% of inquiries within a 5-day period. That's another thing to say we're going to return those calls within a 24-hour period, or if you call in the morning before noon, we get you same day. If you call in the afternoon, it gets you next day. So we need to work our way through this, because what happens with these reports, and I've lived this world many, many years, is reports generate standards, which generate staffing requirements, but reports also generate questions and queries from councils or from staff that create other reports to be driven out. So this doesn't just stop at this report. It becomes something of its own. It has a life of its own and it breathes. So how will that get answered throughout the ops review? Because I'm totally supportive of this, but we got to be cognizant of, we can't demand platinum service and fund a bronze level effort, right? So how are we going to reconcile that?
Through you, Your Worship, definitely it will be something that we look to through the service delivery review and having the conversation about what level of service it is that council wants and expects. On this item in particular, I would suggest that simply this report is really just for information, and it's kind of that brush stroke, broad review of what at a staff level we feel is needed today. Certainly during budget deliberations, based on how the service delivery review report ends up, certainly staff will be in a better position to report back and get some direction from council. Is it something that council wants to incorporate into the 2018 budget? And if it is, what is that level of service that council wants to set? And to your point, Your Worship, certainly it will be important to look at all angles and all implications of implementing such a system. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Just to add a little bit, Brian and I had a good conversation about this week, and Brian, just for clarity purposes, Within the existing operation budget for Public Works this year, would you be able to implement the enhanced version, the advanced version of Main Boss, and utilize that functionality within Public Works until budget time, so we don't expand it across the organization to Recreation and other departments, we keep it within Public Works, but that you could see the functionality and see is it working, and are we getting the two-way communication, then we can do a better plan in the budget time. Is that able to fit within the budget cycle, and then we can see what happens with the service review?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have looked at that, and that is something that we could implement quite easily. Yeah.
And just for further, the roads division in 2016 had 1,138 work orders generated on our Main Boss system. Our water department had 1,692 work orders generated in the system. Not all of them are citizen-derived inquiries for work orders. Some of them are preventive maintenance. But the system will have better ability to communicate with citizens on the action. I would recommend if council or committee can appease that, we would not push this full-time position now. We let the service review do what it does, and we talk about service levels. If Brian can make this work within his existing operation budget, let's let him bring that level from the basic to the advanced, let them work and come back to us at the end of the year. That's what I'd like to see happen from here. Mayor Marshall.
So certainly I'd move the motion. I don't think we have a mover and seconder, so I'm happy to move the motion. I'm happy to accept maybe a third, and that I agree with Councillor Rawson, so that we allow Public Works to try all this out, and then we can make evidence-based decisions going into the budget, and I'd be far more comfortable myself. I'd need a seconder for that, but I certainly support that.
It looks like Councillor Levy is going to second you, but just for clarity, Mayor Marshall, what are you removing? We didn't get a mover yet.
Yeah, I was moving the motion, yeah. We didn't have a mover, or at least I didn't think we did.
No, we didn't.
Okay, so I was moving the main motion, and then adding into the main motion your amendment that we do a trial with Public Works. I wasn't going to remove that the addition of a new full-time position addressing staffing requirements of the system also be considered by council during the 2018 budget process. That's pretty harmless to be in the motion. I don't think we need to take that out.
Okay, you go with that, Councillor Levy? Any further discussion? Any members? Councillor Lutter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also fully agree. I love the idea. I think it's going to heighten communication between residents and the town, which is the most important thing. It'll be a two-way communication, so the residents will be able to talk to the town and will be able to respond in a very, very meaningful fashion. I do understand Mayor Marshall's concept whereby this is going to potentially increase, but the most important thing from my perspective is it's going to streamline, it's going to make things more efficient and better for us, for everyone, because communications is the key. I personally would rather remove that third paragraph there, and I sort of wordsmithed a bit whereby the requirements of the system to be presented to our staffing review procedure, and then at that point it can be presented to council. So I'm not a fan of indicating that a full-time position is going to be presented to council and decided on one by one. I'd rather our staffing procedures, which a meeting was held today to initiate those procedures, so that is happening right now. So I think that's something that's really on our plate, and we want to follow that act.
I'm fine to remove it if the seconder's fine.
So it looks like we're going to remove paragraph 3. Mover and seconders good with that? Any further discussion? Jeff.
Just if I might, Mr. Chair, if simply proceeding with a trial, I don't envision any implications from a procurement policy perspective, but just really making the comment that should we proceed to explore something on a permanent basis down the road, we would probably want to just consult with the procurement policy, and council may wish to waive any requirements after the trial version, but I just really want to make council aware of that piece.
Thank you. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 4 is the correspondence from the Simcoe County Road Supervisors regarding the 2020 AROS trade show. It's recommended that the staff be directed to send a letter of support to the Simcoe County Road Supervisors Association for their application to host the 2020 AORS trade show in Simcoe County. A mover. Councillor Rose. Seconder, Mayor Marshall. This was added to your agenda. Any discussion on this item by anybody? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 5 is the Penetanguishene Transit Bus Identification Update. It's recommended that option 1 or option 2 be approved. Stacy, do we have those that we can throw up there? They're in your agenda package. So do we have a mover on one of those items? We'll have some discussion moving forward. Mayor Marshall.
Sure, I'm not sure, because I got the agenda package up. I want to move option 1, if option 1 is the option as presented on November 9th, 2016, because I don't have options in my version of this. So I see two versions. I see option as presented on November 9th, and I see an option as presented on February 8th, and I'm moving the option that was presented on November the 9th as the preferred option.
Stacy, for clarity, which options are?
Okay, fully understanding that this is a complicated situation. The motion specifically is speaking to either options A or B. I started renaming them A and B instead of 1 and 2 because we were getting several options. A and B are the most up-to-date designs. One of them being, I think, what we talked about at the last meeting, where the designer wanted to provide an option that they felt would be a little more pleasing to the eye, as well as I asked the designer to continue with the amendments as council requested. So you'll see option A being the designer's option and option B being the most recent version of the version that we've been working with. And the two options for the motion are either choosing an A or B or leaving the bus as it is for future consideration.
So I'm hearing Mayor Marshall saying option November 9th.
I'm saying option November 9th. I like November 9th's option. That's what I'm moving.
So
I might not get a seconder, but
That's the motion's been moved, so let's get a seconder.
Councilor LaRue.
I think Councillor Saunders has hand up first. You second that, Councillor Saunders? Okay.
I'm going to ask the mayor if he would be happy to and be more specific so that we are approving option 1B. And option 1B is exactly what I think you're after. And that way we won't have any further confusion on this matter. If you look in your package, the option 1B is clarified very, very clearly in the addition.
Well,
I see design D as being different and design A as being different.
while you confirm that, is there any further discussion on this item? Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to throw a little wrinkle in here. I would rather see us just leave the bus white. It is a transit bus. It's gone through a year only. We're only just coming into number 2 year of the trial period. If we decide to do a major wrap on this and do it like that, and then after our second year and the trial is not working out the way we thought, all we did was bring down the value of the bus when we go to get rid of it to trade it, because obviously then our symbols and wrap on the bus wouldn't be good to anybody else. The other problem is, if we're going to do the wrap and we decide that we're going to do it, by the time the design gets done, as we know this is taking months and months, and then they do it and get it there, it's only going to be time ready for winter to have it all eaten up and beat up by the salt. By then it's the end of the trial year. So we've missed it this far. Just wait another 8 or 9 months and then we'll make a real decision on to whether that's the right bus, the right size of bus, the right kind of bus, or whether we're having a bus. So I would propose that we go to whatever the option was, to leave it as is.
We have a motion. For clarity, Mayor Marshall, is it 1B you moved?
I'm November 9th. If that's 1B, then that's what I'm moving. I just don't know what November 9th is. So, yeah, the one that says November the 9th is the one I want to move. I know that's the one that was previous, Stacy, but when I look at all the options in front of me, I think that's the best.
Okay. fully understanding that that's your preference at this point. There were a number of amendments that were requested after that first option was presented, including removal of Discovery Harbor logos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which has led us to the most recent version. So I'm a little concerned about going back to that very first option. Just to clarify, that's how it's passed through.
Okay, no, you're right, and we end up going down the path of motions to reconsider. So then I'll maybe just change it to, if Councillor LaRue, you support, we just go option design B, which is the closest to what you and I liked.
Well, Your Worship, I was supporting your motion of November the 9th, seconded, and for the simple reason that in discussions at one point in time, it was brought up that we did not want to see the windows blocked. And if I'm looking at option A and B, we have designs through the windows.
Could I speak about that again? So just to clarify, option A, I fully agree with you, Councillor. The option does cover but the option B, the section where it somewhat covers the windows is actually going to be a very clear type of material. It won't be, it will be faded, which is why most of it is sky. It will almost just be like a blue hue as opposed to covering. I know you'll see a little bit covered at the back, but I think that's probably as close as we get to not covering the windows, but still having it appear like an image that doesn't look lopsided on the bus.
I have Mayor Marshall moving, he's not sure if it's 1B or November 9th, and I have Councillor Saunders seconding this.
No, November 9th is myself and Councillor LaRue, I believe. And so maybe we just have to amend it. I'd still like November the 9th, and so maybe the direction and that staff bring forward the necessary steps to get it November 9th in place, which might mean we'd have to do a motion to reconsider. I take your point that we've made some changes here, but...
Mr. Chair?
No, I think Stacey's articulating is that we've actually made motions to remove the items.
No, absolutely not. In fact, it wasn't that there was a motion. It's not I know we're getting completely off kilter here, but there's not a requirement for a motion to reconsider because there was no motion passed. Every motion that I've brought this to has been referred back to staff with direction, So there actually has been no decision made on this item.
Am I hearing November 9th? All right, let's do this. Any further discussion? November 9th, not 1A or B, is November 9th. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote against November 9th for the two reasons that the two things that jumped out at me was the fact that we wanted Penetanguishene symbols and scenery on the passenger side so everyone getting on the bus would see it all the time. That's completely opposite on November 9th. And that's my main reason. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Calling for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? Number 6 is the Waterfront Park Maintenance Plan. It's recommended that this report be received for information that the additional park maintenance budgetary increases outlined within the staff report be brought forward for council consideration during the 2018 budget process. A mover. Mayor Marshall. Seconder. Councillor LaRue. Brian, if you can speak to this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a referral item for the T&E section that was brought forward based upon the recent upgrades to the Waterfront Park, now known as Champlain-Wendat Rotary Park. With the improvements and the beautification done to that park, the referral item was to bring forward a maintenance plan to help maintain the infrastructure in the park. There is both public works and recreation and cultural services infrastructure within that park. So the responsibility for maintaining the park rests with both of those departments. In 2005, the Severn Sound Environmental Association, shortly after the rehabilitation efforts that were completed during the mid to late 90s, was completed, drafted a maintenance and management plan for the waterfront park, which has been appended to the report. In that report, it outlines the various history that brought it to that date of the report, dating back to the logging industry to present day. Outlined in the report is the management practices that are to be followed by town staff in maintaining either drainage courses or the flora and fauna within the park. There's a number of wetland areas that are within the park that need to be treated very carefully and to ensure that the environment is not damaged as these wetlands actually serve to provide drainage outlets for various storm sewers around town. It actually provides a very critical service to the town. It cleans the water, provides control of the stormwater before it enters the bay. And within the report outlines some of the past activities that the parks and or the RCS and the Public Works departments have undertaken. It also outlines the plans for this year for maintenance and for going forward to maintain that park. There's also budgetary increases that are also being recommended for consideration for the upcoming budget process. And be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Brian. Any members have any questions for Brian on this item? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Referrals, I think we can knock a few off here, Brian. If everyone would agree, we can knock off SSEA Park Maintenance Plan. Seeing some nods around the table. Pantang Bus Identification. Resident Reporting System. All right. That the Transportation Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Thompson's Road extension options, Champlain Road weight limits, and the transit agreement renewal options. A mover. Mayor Marshall, seconder, Councillor Saunders. He beat you. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. And question period from meeting public. Seeing none, back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 6, Section B, Recreation and Community Services section. I'll turn the chair over to Councillor LaRue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Starting with consent agenda, Penetanguishene Library minutes dated April 24th, 2017. Museum Board minutes dated April 27, 2017. Heritage minutes dated March 9, 2017. Curling Club minutes dated May 3rd, 2017. Special events update, attachment, Bayside Market and Music flyer. Attachment 2, All Things Wheels Parade flyer. Attachment 3, Canada Day at Museum flyer. Attachment 4, Cupcake flyer. Attachment 5, All Things Canadian and Urban Slide flyer. And Attachment 6, Cycle Camelot flyer. Correspondence, Notice of Funding, Commitment Trails, Connecting Communities Program 2017, Martin Valley Trail Project, correspondence from the County of Simcoe. Mover and seconder, Councillor Rose, Councillor Rawson, all in favor? It's carried. Yes, do you want to post something, Councillor Lauder?
Yes, please. I'd just like to comment about the correspondence regarding the notice of the funding.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just like to thank, initially I'd just like to say that this was presented by our director with support with Tracy Roxborough of the Sustainable Severn Sound, an application to our TD funding, and that funding was denied. But then the thought was by Sherry to represent that to Simcoe County for their interconnectivity of community trails. I always thought this had to be from municipality to municipality, but in fact it's connecting communities. And in fact, with the Martin Valley, the trail system there is going to connect the school systems. We have 3 schools in the area, the various communities in there, and Simcoe County found that it fully met their criteria. So I want to thank, and I believe Jeff Hamlin was also part of the original designer of the TD funding request. So Sherry and Jeff, and also Tracy Roxbury, I want to thank them very much for putting this through, and it's excellent money for the trail system and Martin Valley Park in general. Thank you.
Very good. There are no further comments. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to award of museum roof tender. Recommended action that council accept the supply and install of 2 EnviroShake roofs at the Penetanguishene Centennial Museum and Archives. Tender submitted by GRS Roofing for $87,300 plus HST, and that the additional funds of up to $14,050 required to complete the project be funded through the Asset Management Reserve. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Mayette. The seconder. Mr. Your Worship. Concerns, comments, and I might point out that the cost difference is actually not 14,000. It is going to be 5,000 and change. Now, this part of it was budgeted in the 2017 budget based on prices that were received from 2 contractors, and then in turn, when the tenders went out, both of those contractors didn't submit. So this is why it's somewhat over, and so we're moving that it be passed and we can move on to get the work done. So, further comments or concerns? If not, all in favor? Carried. Number 2, 2017 Heritage Tax Rebate Program approvals for 2016 tax year. Recommended action that the Heritage Tax rebates for the 2016 tax year be approved for the following properties at a rebate rate of 40%. The Green Block, 1 Water Street, $2,604.85. The J.T. Payette House, 33 Robert Street West, $1,009.1836. And the W.R. Benson Home, 69 Point Street, $1,357.88. And that staff be directed to process the applicable rebates and notify the property owners as required. Mover? Councillor Mayette, seconder. Councillor DeRose. Comments, concerns? Your Worship?
Thank you. Just if you could refresh for me through you, Chair, to our Director. So in terms of the rebates, is there an expectation that these properties actually do something on an annual basis? So, you know, what is the process under which our Chair isn't here, so I'm coming to Sherry on this one. And just for the record, the Deputy Mayor has actually represented us at a Great Lakes conference in Montreal, so that's why she's absent tonight. But Sherry, so what is the process that undertakes for these monies to be released, and what are the rules of engagement, I guess is what I'm looking for?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to your worship. So there is a program guidelines that that the heritage property owners must follow, and essentially when they make home improvements, they have an opportunity to receive a rebate on their taxes for maintaining the heritage status of their homes. So their homes are rated in a heritage status because of particular architectural value or their finishings, and they have to comply with that designation in their improvements to maintain that status. And there is no annual requirement.
So that's where you confused me, though. I heard you say it was for improvements, so if there's no improvements, why am I granting rebates?
They don't have to annually maintain their home. It's if they choose to, then they can apply to have a rebate for the year that they had the work completed in.
So if I choose not to do anything for 10 years, I get a rebate for 10 years? I get $20,000? How's this working?
No, it applies to the year that the work was done, but they're not required annually to continue to do home improvements.
Okay, thank you.
I might point out, Your Worship, that also in a heritage home, the owners are controlled somewhat by the municipality as to what they can do to the exterior of their homes. They're not freewheeling like most other homes, so that is part of the reason why this rebate is given. Further discussion, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to Penetanguishene Time Capsule Event. Recommended action that a time capsule is buried in Puck Rotary Champlain-Wendat Park, and that it be opened in the year of the 200th anniversary of Canada's Confederation. And I might point out that would be like 50 years from now, so the majority of this council won't be there. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Rawson, Councillor Rose, all in favor. Carried. We have a verbal update from the Director of Recreation on Ontario Municipal Commuter Cycling Grant Opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring to committee's attention that the Ministry of Transportation recently announced a grant opportunity for municipal commuter cycling program. The day after the guidelines were announced, we had a Trails Committee meeting, and the Trails Committee is quite excited about this opportunity. My understanding of the grant is that it's to develop commuter cycling infrastructure. However, we do believe that we, as a smaller municipality, would have the opportunity to submit to apply for funding to develop a cycling strategy, which we currently do not have. So I am endeavoring to submit a report for next council meeting, as the deadline for the application is August 18th. I've just not yet had an opportunity to understand the implications of the grant. I just wanted to bring that to committee's attention.
Questions or concerns to the Director? No? Thank you, Harry. Moving on to referrals, that the Recreation Community Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff, future agenda items: tourism, advertising, print and online for future consideration; recreation assets, parks and facilities; cycling strategy; curling club operations review agreement; outdoor skiing rink; the Karma Ecology Garden report agreement; pickleball; and Rotary Park Pavilion rental review. Any additions or removals? Councillor Rawson?
I added that Rotary Park Pavilion rental review, and Councillor Levy and I brought a motion forward to discuss that at council in 2 weeks, so we're happy to remove that.
So we could remove that one, that's fine. Further discussion? Mover, Councillor Rawson, seconder, Councillor Lauder, all in favor. Questions from public or the media? Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I might just make a quick announcement. Just about 30 minutes ago, we received notification that on Sunday, June 18th, there's going to be 12 Métis youth as part of a canoe expedition from Ottawa to Kenora for Métis Nation of Ontario General Assembly. So they're going to be landing in Penetanguishene on June 18th. It's a Sunday at the observation deck, mid-afternoon. They're going to do some activities on Legacy Walkway, and followed by a dinner at Brian Orser Hall. Their visit's going to be short, but we're certainly anticipating and will be welcoming them with arms wide open. But I just thought, while we had an opportunity before our next council meeting, I'd verbalize that to committee.
Thank you very much. There is nothing further for Recreation Community Services. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Move on to Section C, which is Planning and Community Development Services. And I'll remind the Chair and the Clerk that Councillor Rawson has declared conflict on item C3. Over to Chair Levy, please.
Thank you very much. Starting with the consent agenda, Downtown Improvement Committee minutes dated May 3rd, 2017. Committee of Adjustment minutes dated April 24th, 2017. Huronia Animal Control Monthly Comparative Report. Correspondence from Heather Drake and Brian Tucker. Sustainable Severn Sound minutes dated April 6th, 2017. Economic Development Corporation of North Simcoe Economic Development Officer Report dated May 5th, 2017. Did anyone want to pull any of these for further discussion or clarity? Seeing none, do I have a mover? Councillor Lauder, and seconded by Councillor LaRue. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to matters for consideration. Addition of regulatory stop sign on Rogers Road. Recommended action that a bylaw be passed to amend the traffic and parking bylaw 2012-23 as amended to add a new stop sign for the westbound traffic on Rogers Road at the intersection of Belil Road. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Mayette, and seconded by Mayor Marshall. And any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Very good. Zoning bylaw amendment ZA 1, 2017, marijuana production facility. And, oops, did I miss something? I did. Thank you. Source Protection Plan Implementation, OPA, number 29, and ZA 9, 2015, Staff Report, PD 1742, recommended action that a bylaw be passed to enact Official Plan Amendment number 29, and that a bylaw regarding application zoning bylaw amendment file ZA 9, 2015 be presented at the June 28, 2017 regular council approval. For approval. Any further discussion? Oh, sorry, mover, Councillor Louder, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Discussion. Questions? Okay, seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor? Let me off easy tonight, guys, so far. Now to zoning bylaw amendment ZA 1, 2017, marijuana production facility and agri-manufacturing staff report, PD 1741, results of the public meeting. Recommended action that zoning bylaw 2002 be amended to permit a marijuana production facility defined as a building used for growing, producing, testing, destroying, storing, or distribution of marijuana or cannabis, and for the purposes of clarification, no part of this operation, whether accessory or not, may be located outside within the industrial services M1 storage and light manufacturing M2, yard storage and heavy manufacturing M3, and industrial packaging M4 zones, and that a marijuana production facility not be permitted with 150 meters of a school. And finally, that zoning bylaw 2002 be amended to permit an agri-manufacturing facility defined as a building for commercial production and distribution of living organisms traditionally grown in rural areas on farmland or in greenhouses. Some examples may include fruits, vegetables, herbs, and flowers within the industrial services M1, storage and light manufacturing M2, yard storage and heavy manufacturing M3, and industrial packaging M4 zones. Do I have a mover for this? Mayor Marshall, seconded by Councillor LaRose. And question from Brad Saunders?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion. I think that 150 meters within 150 meters of a school is way, way too close. And I'd like to move an amendment that be expanded to 1,000 meters.
Stacey, can you help me out a little bit here with, oh, first of all, I'll ask for a second. Help me out with procedure, please.
Most certainly, I could see this as a friendly amendment, changing it from 150 to 1,000 meters, but I'd request the advice of the planner to know if there are any implications that I may not be thinking of as clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the night that we discussed this a few weeks back, there was a gentleman in the audience when this came up on, when the school people came to say that it was going to be too close to the school. And he already indicated to us that there was a federal regulation on as to how close it can or cannot be from a school. So I would anticipate that our zoning amendment would include that. So the 150 meters wouldn't be 150 meters, it would be whatever the federal regulation that they quoted would be.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask for clarification from our planning director at this point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levy. So I did go into this in a bit detail within the staff report. So you are correct at that public meeting. The member of the public did mention that there's a regulation that there's a rule or guideline at the federal government level that they would not permit a medical marijuana producer within 500 meters of a school. So we did go back to Health Canada and ask for clarification in that, because in our review of the regulations, there is no such regulation. Health Canada did confirm that, and it is within the staff report as to what exactly Health Canada does regulate. So they don't have a regulation for that. What they do ask is that with any submission for a site, that they show properties within 500 meters of the proposed site, and that also the minister cannot permit a production facility where it may have negative impact on sensitive uses such as schools. So it's not a regulation, it is something that would be at the discretion of Health Canada. So in my review of other municipalities, we did look at what other municipalities have done for separation distances from sensitive land uses, and so there is generally, or average, it is about 150 meters. Also in the staff report, there is a map which shows what each, what varying types of separation distances would apply. And so we've shown that 150 meters or what 500 meters would look like. I don't have 1,000 meters shown on that map. However, I could confirm that that would most definitely exclude all of our industrial zones. So that would not permit any medical marijuana facility anywhere in town by a 1,000 meter separation distance. So when I was looking at what an appropriate separation distance, I don't only relied on what other municipalities has done and what they had consulted and considered appropriate, but I also considered the design and function of that industrial lands. And so through that, I felt comfortable that 150 meters would allow the industrial park to continue to operate as it's proposed, and that a marijuana production facility is most similar to the other types of manufacturing facilities in that industrial park, and that's why I felt it was appropriate to propose a 150-meter separation distance. That being said, Council can consider any type of separation distance that they feel is adequate.
Oh, thank you very much. Councillor Saunders?
Well, Madam Chair, when we heard the submissions from the large number of parents who were at our meeting, they were very, very concerned that the facility not be built very close to a school. They made some comments that there was intent to build the facility right across the road from the school. We know that's not true. In my own mind, I'd like to try and balance the two concerns. We'd like to obviously to have a healthy industrial area. We'd also like to have a healthy protection for our children. Andrea, are you suggesting that in your mind 150 meters balances both?
Through you, Councillor Levy, to Councillor Saunders, in my professional opinion, that is an appropriate separation. Further, giving consideration as to looking at the map and what properties would permit it, they would be within where there is existing industrial operations such as the Tech Forum facility, CCL. Those properties which are already industrial operations would be where a potential facility could locate. I also should have noted that the Health Canada regulations with respect to how these facilities operate is heavily regulated in terms of what's seen on the property, how it's secured, fencing, everything from signage, personnel, deliveries, those types of things. So from that point of view as well, I felt that it was appropriate that the regulations that Health Canada has for these facilities is an appropriate protection for children.
Well, Madam
Thank
Chair,
you very much.
I'll withdraw my my amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was using Google Maps, and I mapped out the walking distances because that's what I feel is extremely important, especially with respect to the schools. And for example, from St. Louis Catholic School through to Laurier and Centennial is 500 meters. And from St. Anne's Separate School through to Thompson and Robert is 700 meters. As such, I don't feel that people going to these schools are going to be walking, and I think, but I totally agree with Councillor Saunders that the 150 is a little on the light side. I personally equate the 500 meters walking to a 300-meter radius, and the specifications here are in a radius. So what I'd like to make the friendly amendment so that the paragraph reads, and that the marijuana production facility not be permitted within 300 meters of school. And I finally go on to say that the report says that many municipalities have suggested separation sensitive land uses averaging 150 meters, but I feel, as representative of the town of Penetanguishene, I want to be better than average, and as such, I also want to show our residents that we are respecting their comments that came forward. So I think by increasing a reasonable 150 to a 300-meter radius from any school, Andrea did send me a personal map along with what she sent out in the report, and 300 meters still fully allows everything on between Laurier and Robert, from Centennial all the way up to Fuller, everything on the south side of Robert, north of Thompson, yes. So quite a bit of our current industrial would then be available at over 500-meter walking, and also any planned increase to our industrial with respect to our current official plan review. We are looking at some potential increases to the industrial land, and that would be even farther away, so there would be land also available for the marijuana production facility in that area. So friendly amendment from my perspective would be to change the 150-meter from school to a 300-meter from schools. I'd like to put forth that amendment and see if I have a seconder.
Any further discussion on that, Councillor Marshall? Or Mayor Marshall, I've demoted him.
I think Councillor Leroux was
I'm
next in
sorry.
the queue.
I've been waiting for a while, yeah. And I was going to say that I agree with Councillor Saunders that 150 meters, being only 450 feet approximately, to me is a little close in sense. I was also going to recommend and suggest that we go with the 300 meters, which is more like 900 feet and makes more sense to me. And so I would certainly support that we change it from 150 to 300.
Thank you very much. Mayor Marshall, were you going to speak to this?
I was going to speak to the main motion. The distance separation for me is not, 300 meters is fine. I would certainly, I can support that. The reality of the situation, though, is once we get to the main motion, is some of the concerns from our citizens and residents were odors. These facilities have been there. I've been through that Peace Naturals plant. There are no odors. They have charcoal filters about every 45 feet or so. The manufacturing processes are second to none. I swear to God, you couldn't drop a marijuana leaf in that facility without somebody knowing it. You have to swipe in to get into the facility, into the specific rooms. You have to swipe your card to get back out. The employees are tracked. They're not allowed to brand the facilities, so there's no recognition that says, hey, this is a medical marijuana plant. There's just another vacant-looking building in an industrial complex. In terms of security, the security is high level. There'll be gates up there, Lundy fences with your, whatever you call that, razor wire at the top, so on and so forth. So the distance question in terms of diminishing the concerns of our residents that I think need to be recognized are actually diminished by the processes and procedures put in by the manufacturers themselves. So really when we move the distance from 150 to 300, what we're doing is not diminishing the risk to the schools or traffic or foot traffic or drive-by traffic, because that's not going to exist anyways. What we're doing is actually diminishing our ability to build our industrial lands. That's the impact of what we're doing. So what we're doing is actually, we're trying to diminish something. What we're diminishing is the opportunity to develop our industrial lands for the wrong reason. So, but if it's 300 meters, I'm absolutely fine. But I can tell the audience here, having gone through that Peace Naturals plant twice, when it's controversial, the best thing to do is go get educated, see what's going on. I went educated. I walked through there. I can tell you that As the mayor of the community, I'll stand tall in this recommendation, knowing full well that I've given it good due diligence and really did understand what was going on. We asked the tough questions. We did the tour not once, but twice, to make sure I clearly understood what I was supporting. And so 300 meters, if that's the will of council, absolutely fine with that. But just for the comfort of council and comfort of residents and those watching, the issues of distance not really a factor in the discussion whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. Stacy, we vote on the amended motion?
On the amendment specifically.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, now you have to vote on the main motion as amended. So now we're back to the main one.
Oh,
Yeah, you
sorry.
just approved the 300 meters.
Yeah.
Now we have to approve the whole entire motion.
Of course we do. Okay. I did have a mover and a seconder on that, correct? Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
It's carried.
Carried. Thank you very much. Something is better than nothing. And moving on, PD 1743 redevelopment agreement, 430 Murray Road, recommended action that a bylaw be passed to authorize mayor and clerk to sign the consent agreement for execution regarding the lands municipally known as 430 Murray Road consent applications B6 2016. Andrea, did you have anything? I don't have the report in front of me right now. My computer decided to shut down. Oh, there it is. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. I can give a quick recap to Council and the public. So this was property was subject to a zoning bylaw amendment back in 2015, and the town passed a zoning bylaw amendment to permit rezoning of the property to facilitate residential building lots on those lands. Subsequent to that, the owners then applied for consent to sever, which they have received that permission from the Committee of Adjustment, subject to conditions, and one of those conditions is the consent agreement. This consent agreement is somewhat like a mini subdivision. It confirms and has been reviewed by the town's engineer in order to confirm that all the municipal requirements such as servicing, road construction, as well as private lot considerations, retaining walls, soak-away pits, those types of things have been addressed through a site plan for the property. So this is just a step in order to get them through to get building permits for those new lots.
Thank you very much, Director Betty. Any further discussion on this since we discussed it in great detail last time? No? Oh, I didn't get a mover yet. Mover on this? Councillor Louder, and seconded by Councillor LaRose. Further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? And carried. Thank you. Moving on to referrals. Future agenda items, Thompson Road West Extension, Fall 2017, Development Charges, CIP, Targeted Incentives and Opportunities, Fall 2017, Land Inventory Analysis, Summer 2017, Agribusiness in the Industrial Zone. Can we take that off now? Awesome. We get to strike one. Secondary Suite Report, Fall 2017, Ojibwe Landing Update, Summer 2017. Can we take that off now? Yeah, Brian says yes. It's the only update we're going to get until after the next election, so let's go for it. All righty, question period from media and public. What's that? Oh, we didn't vote on that. Thank you very much. What would I do without you? Councillor LaRue and Councillor Louder. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Oh, now question period from media public. Stacy, just to make a note on the agenda. Stacy, sorry. Hello. Hello.
What was that?
Just to make a note on our agendas, the question period from media and public at the end of our sections is underneath the beginning of the next section.
Thank you. I did notice that, and so far council's been addressing it at the appropriate time, and I've been minuting it.
And I'm the first one that was mean enough to mention it to you. Okay. Seeing none, we're adjourned. What?
No. Planning's
Okay,
adjourned.
adjourned from that, moving back to the mayor.
Where-
You know what I mean.
I certainly did. Moving on to Section D, Item 8, Section D, Finance and Corporate Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Saunders, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The consent agenda items are as follows. Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes dated March 30, 2017. Correspondence from Midland Home Depot, re Community Reach Huronia. Correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, re Phase 1 Building Code consultation. Correspondence from Rob Staffen, re book donation, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. OPP Billing Survey. Correspondence from Midland Penetanguishene District CERT, re a request for financial assistance for a CERT vehicle. 2016 Development Charges Reserve Fund Continuity Schedule. 2016 Debt Schedule and 2017 Annual Repayment Limit. And finally, correspondence from Mayor Rob Burton, Chair of the Auto Mirrors, Auto Mirrors Update. Would anyone like to pull any of those items? Your Worship?
Yes, items 4 and 9, please. 13 Ways to Kill Your Community and the Auto Mayors.
Okay. Anyone else?
Item 6, the correspondence from Midland Penetanguishene CERT.
Okay. So if my notes are correct, this items 4, 6, and 9 will be pulled for further discussion. Any further? Could I have a mover for the remainder, please? Councillor LaRue and Councillor Lauder. All those in favor? That's carried. All right, moving on to item 4. I believe it was the mayor that asked for that to be pulled. Your Worship?
Thank you very much. The 13 Ways to Kill Your Community is quite engaging. It's we saw them at the Ontario Good Roads Association in February, and there was a session by the author in Wasaga Beach. I think it was Wasaga Beach, Clearview Township, and I believe Springwater. Thank you. Put it on, and our deputy mayor attended that, and she thought it was quite well done. And really enjoyed it, and she actually brought back a couple of books for us as well. But it strikes me as a good opportunity for perhaps North Simcoe, and we should perhaps reach out to our neighboring municipalities to see if they want to host it up here. It's a good session. The cost of it's about $7,500 to bring to the area, but we could go to folks like Mr. Staff and look for sponsorship for these type of programs to assist with those costs. So I'd like to proceed, or at least get direction from council to allow the CEO and staff to investigate if our fellow neighboring mayors are interested, and perhaps they could reach out to Mr. Staff and to see if he's actually willing to sponsor this program that he believes in. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you care to move a motion, Your Worship?
Yes, of some nature of
That's
similar
why I asked
words.
the question.
I did ramble, but Stacy, I guess I'm really looking for staff to, or for the CEO to be allowed to discuss the opportunity with the neighboring municipalities and to reach out to Mr. Staffen for sponsorship support.
And we have a seconder. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 6. Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just hoping that staff can follow up with this request. We always have a surplus capital request that we look at. Community organizations can put a case forward. So I'm just hoping that this can be followed up by our staff with the respondent here and guide them through that process to be included with that surplus request process.
So do I hear you referring this, moving to refer this item to staff?
I'm just asking if we can kindly ask and inform the process to the people asking for help.
Okay. So what would you like to do with this item then? We have not voted on it.
I'm comfortable accepting it as is. I'm just hoping the staff can pass the olive branch.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll have a mover to receive this correspondence. Councilor Levy and His Worship the Mayor. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to item 9. Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I think I'd like to actually pull this and actually support the resolution. I think that the auto mayor's recommendation is, the auto manufacturing efforts certainly are important to our communities in terms of manufacturing, in terms of employment. I think it's wise of us to support our fellow mayors and fellow municipalities who are in the auto sector. And I believe the town of Midland, and I look to our CEO. I'm not sure, did the town of Midland actually approve a resolution on Monday night? Do we know, CEO?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not 100% positive, but I do believe that they did. Certainly it was being tabled, and my indication was that they have, but I'm not entirely positive on that.
Okay. So I'd certainly like to move that I'd certainly like to move the recommendation as crafted within the report, and would look for a seconder for that.
And Councillor Levy has seconded that. Any discussion?
I would just like to add that the majority of our solid manufacturing in Penetanguishene and Midland is auto-related, and it's very important that we do support this industry.
Any further comments? And Stacey, you're clear on the intent of the... Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to matters for discussion. A draft of the 2016 reserves and reserve funds continuity schedule. And the recommended action is that the 2016 reserves and continuity schedule be approved as presented. I wonder if we could ask our treasurer to make a couple of comments on that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The draft 2016 reserves and reserve funds continuity schedule is attached to the report, and it basically outlines the opening balance of the town reserves for the year January 1, 2016. It also identifies the interest that's been earned on the reserve fund accounts. It further identifies and describes in the background and the analysis of the report how we utilized some of our reserves and reserve funds for the 2016 budget period, as well as reserve and reserve funds that were appropriated into the reserves throughout the year, ending in the ending balance draft as of December 31st, 2016 of almost $8.9 million. So in terms of the interest earned, what we used, and also what we transferred into reserves, there was a slight net increase of about $150,000 going into our reserves and reserve funds in the year 2016.
Thank you very much. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution, please? Councillor LaRue and his worship. Are there any further questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving on to item 2, Waterfront's license agreement, refreshment vehicle delish food truck. The recommendation is that the terms and conditions of the draft 5-year agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Penetanguishene and 1728-318 Ontario Inc. food truck known as Delish be approved, and that the clerk be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Your worship and Councillor LaRue. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none, all those... Oh, I'm sorry, Stacey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not so much of a question, more as just an update. As council is aware, this request has been received from a food truck that had been in our park last summer. I was directed to proceed with the 5-year agreement to allow for a little bit more stable ability for this business to be in our park. I was able to use the agreement from Happy Paddling, which there was a lot of comparisons for, as they're both spending summers in our park. I did utilize that agreement. for the basis of this agreement with some amendments related to food truck, because the food truck would still require a refreshment vehicle license. So those amendments were made. I just wanted to note, I didn't receive anything in writing. I did provide this draft agreement to the owner of the business. I didn't receive anything in writing, and as I've been at a conference for the last couple of days, I just recently listened to what was a voicemail responding to some concerns about the agreement that I wanted council to be aware of so I could get some direction. One of the concerns specifically related to the insurance being set at $5 million, and I was told that in this voicemail that normally municipalities request $2 million. Liability, and so again, I just used the same agreement that we used for Happy Paddling in terms of the amount, and at that time, the owner also implied that perhaps the town should be maybe paying them to be attending the park, as it consists of a large draw to the park having this food truck in the park. So I don't know if that was something that specifically that owner wanted me to consider as part of the agreement. I wasn't quite sure because I didn't have a chance to clarify because of my time away. I just got to listen to that message, but it is something that I wanted council to be aware of.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving on to the next item. Refreshment vehicle license, temporary approval for a non-motorized vehicle. And the recommendation is that the request for a bylaw exemption relating to the non-motorized refreshment vehicle bylaw 2004-101 as amended for G-Cox be approved for the 2017 summer season, June 17 through October 15. Are there any questions? Councilor Rawson? Okay, Councilor Rawson is moving the motion. We need a seconder. Councilor LaRue. Any further questions? Councilor Lauder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like some clarification. For example, Delish Sales, the report says that they do not have any frozen products. And as such, this vendor that we're talking about now, I'm very excited about it, he'll be able to go within 150 or 200 meters of the Delish vendor. So he'll be able to approach the splash pad. However, we don't have any limitations or any restrictions on the Delish food truck. So, for example, if the Delish food truck next year were to then start taking and selling frozen, the same sort of frozen popsicles, whatnot, with the limitations that we have here, 200 meters of a business selling, then that refreshment bicycle could no longer approach the splash pad because he's now approaching a business selling product. So I personally would like to remove that 200 meters of a business selling when you consider that we already have that it's not on Main Street as part of the requirements. And as such, that 200 meters may not be important. The other end of that would be to have a grandfathering clause in there whereby the frozen truck is now selling those sort of products, and as such, if other people start, he still has a grandfather rule for that product.
So, Councilor Lauder, are you proposing some kind of amendment?
I'm going to look at our clerk to see which way would be better. The grandfather is a lot of discussion in the actual terms and whatnot, and it's going to be hard to enforce. But I don't want Delish to all of a sudden, selling of frozen products is a good idea, so I'm going to start next year. And once I start, I've got a 5-year schedule here, and as such, no one else can come into the splash pad doing that. So I think it's important that the 200 meters of a business selling similar products, that can be removed because we're going to keep the not Main Street, and we don't have a vendor other than in the park. I guess we would have Brenda's Confectionery and stuff like that, but, I would like to just remove the 200 meters of a business selling similar products.
So are you moving an amendment?
Yes, please. That's Sorry, no, I'm moving a fix to the report that's not actually in an amendment to the motion, so there's not a change to the motion, just a fix to the
Well,
report.
in order for us to take any action as a council, there has to be a motion on the floor. And if you're proposing to add something by way of amendment to this particular motion, that's fine, but otherwise, we will be voting on the motion as it is.
So then I'd like to add that there not be a 200-meter restriction of businesses selling similar products. So that could be added to the motion, that there not be a restriction.
Stace, have you got that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, absolutely. I think what Councillor Lauder is saying, right now we're currently exempting them from our business licensing bylaw, allowing them to go into a park. So Councillor Lauder is simply just exceeding that exemption and including an exemption from that 200-meter radius, allowing them to be a little more free based on the current vendor in the park. But I think it brings up a good point in terms of a review of our business licensing bylaw, as well as perhaps a review of what businesses we do want to have in our park and a plan going forward.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Lauder's motion to amend? Councillor LaRue, is there any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed? That is carried. Now we'll go back to the main motion as amended. Could I have a mover for that motion as amended, please? Councillor Mayotte and Councillor LaRue. Any further discussion on the amended motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving on to the next item, in the taxi bylaw review. Recommendation that council approves staff's drafting of a taxi bylaw allowing dual licensing between the communities, and that this report is provided to Midland Council for their directive to staff on the drafting of a new taxi bylaw. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? The mayor? A seconder? Councillor Lauder, thank you. Saved the bell. Stacy, I wonder if you'd mind saying a few words on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just an update regarding the taxi bylaw. I think our bylaw enforcement officer, Jillian Forbes, prepared this document hoping to get some direction from council. The ad hoc committee has met several times, including members of the public, being that of actually a member on the accessibility committee, as well as a member from the youth council who was attending, as well as a owner of the taxi cab stand locally. And the decision was made by the majority of the ad hoc committee to proceed with potential opportunities for dual licensing with the town of Midland. Since that time, town of Midland staff and Penetanguishene staff have met to decide on how we would go about this dual licensing and come up with what we think is a plan that would work. So we're just looking for council approval to move forward with that plan.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Your Worship?
Thank you. Yes, I'm very supportive. The committee really thought their way through this exercise. So we did have an ad hoc committee, and I had the pleasure of attending most of those meetings. I missed a couple, but at the end of the day, this solves a huge problem because all taxi companies now can actually do business in both municipalities equally with no restrictions. One of the things we heard from our taxi owners during earlier deliberations was the fact that when we talked about 10-year-old vehicles, they said one of the reasons they had to go with a 10-year-old vehicle was they weren't open to the business opportunities in Midland, and therefore couldn't afford to purchase vehicles younger than 10 years in age, because it was a business decision. At the end of the day, this now actually opens up all that business in Midland, and if I understood correctly, if my memory serves, that opens up to another 2,500 taxi rides, and I can't remember whether that was per month or per week or whatever the numbers were, but it was quite a difference between the local taxi activity and what we'd open up to the town of Midland. and it opens up to a fair market. So at the end of the day, I think that this is a good one. I think our taxi companies will compete with one another. I think that the level of services, because of competition that opens up, will be better. The taxis will be cleaner, faster, better service, courteous, all those things that your citizen would enjoy, and open market certainly provides that. So I'm certainly supportive of this. I think it helps our local taxis become more vibrant and opens the door for more businesses. And I think at the end of the day, competition will deliver better services for residents of Penetanguishene and the town of Midland.
Other comments? Councillor Lauder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ditto to our mayor. I love your comments. I fully support them, and I'm going to support this act here, this motion. But the only thing is I'm a little, I don't want to say disappointed, I'm a little taken by the letter received by Mercury Taxi. And so basically what I'd like to suggest is that really the ad hoc taxi committee really contact them and find out exactly why they feel they may not benefit as well. And it may just be certain provisions such as similar to what we have now, whereby you can't pick up and drop in a neighboring municipality. For example, Mercury is here in Penetanguishene, so as such, they could pick up and take to Midland, or they could go to Midland and pick up and take to Penetang. But for them to go to Midland and pick up and drop may not be beneficial. That's not what they're saying, but they're claiming a lot of Midland taxi companies will come here and do full work here. So maybe provision like that might help them. I'm just asking that the ad hoc committee go to Mercury Taxi and find out exactly why they feel they're not going to benefit from this plan, because I fully support it. I think it's a great plan.
I was on this committee since the beginning, and the reaction that I had was that there are times when people want to have the advantages. They don't necessarily want the other guy to have the advantages. This is a highly competitive market, and as the mayor was just saying a moment ago, those people who do the best job at delivering service are going to get the bulk of the service. I also want to make a comment with respect to the role of our clerk in this whole exercise. I think Stacy did a yeoman job of driving this committee to some kind of conclusion. There were times when we thought it would never reach a conclusion, but Stacy, thank you on behalf of council. Are there other questions and comments with respect to this review? Councillor Rawson.
I don't share the sentiments around the table. I don't like it at all. I was going to use the word terrible, but I'll calm it down a little bit tonight. When we last brought this report to the table, there was lots of discussion about 10-year-old vehicles and licensing requirements and police checks, and we went into the weeds and stuff. We talked about open environment and people can go with whatever service they want. I would argue that happens today. No one's policing this bylaw today. So our existing bylaw is here. I see busy people come to here, pick up and drop off every day, and it's not police, it's not maintained today. This isn't going to change what taxis come in and service this town today. It won't change it at all. I don't understand how the ad hoc committee went to work on a dual licensing with Midland. That was not what came out of our discussion at all. I remember quite clearly we talked about how old the vehicle was. We talked about 50-year-old vehicles and 7-year-old vehicles, and at the end of the day, what do we care? The consumer that's paying the price is going to determine who they're going to go with. I think this one's very, very bad. We have another business telling us that we're off kilter here again, and we're going to do what we can to try to destroy another business. So I think it's terrible. I'm going to vote against it.
All right, thank you. Other comments, questions? I've lost track a bit here. Stace, did I get a mover and a seconder for this? Good, thank you. All those in favor? Let me get my count here, guys. Keep your arm up, please. Opposed? The vote is a tie, therefore the vote is lost. And the motion is defeated. And I suspect it's back to council now to determine what it would like to do with respect to the vacuum that we have just created. We'll leave that for another day, perhaps. Procedure for adding referral items to Committee of the Whole agendas. The recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that the procedure is outlined within CAO Report 1704 pertaining to the addition of referral items to a Committee of the Whole agenda be received, and that option B be recommended to Council for approval, whereby one referral item per quarter per section would be permitted to be added, and that said procedure be officially added to the town's procedural bylaw in conjunction with the next bylaw review by the clerk. Your mover and seconder, please. Your Worship, and Councillor Rawson. Stacy, it might be useful if you gave us a couple of comments with respect to this whole scenario. Or we're going to the CAO. Ooh. Jeff?
If I might, Mr. Chair, given that I authored the report, the kind of in a very summation, this, as council or as committee will recall, this was a referral item that was requested by committee. Staff took a look did some random samples throughout the last few years on number of items that have been essentially accumulating on the referrals list. Senior staff had a number of conversations about kind of the process and how things get added, and also there was a large discussion about the number of items and how the list can, quite frankly, be very daunting when you look at all the other duties and responsibilities and roles of staff, be it day-to-day operation items, be it completing capital items, and be it other strategic initiatives that senior staff and staff that support senior staff are undertaking throughout the year, kind of as approved through the annual business plan and budget. And then you kind of throw in a fourth bucket, which is the referral items as approved by committee. So really what we've presented is a number of options in the report. Our goal is to have a little bit of a streamlined process. And, you know, as I said, I've had a number of conversations with senior staff, and it is, you know, workloads are high, and as we get items added, it kind of throws the priorities for senior staff and staff that support senior staff off kilter a little bit, and we kind of sometimes end up going north, south, east, and west, kind of all in the same month. So really looking for some clarity in that respect. The other goal with the report is I'm hopeful that we can get a bit of direction from committee on the current outstanding referral items. I do talk about in my report on the top of page 3 of the report, or sorry, page 5 of the report, current list of referral items. So we would like a bit of clarity on the priority levels of the items that are there today. We will take that back at a senior staff level and discuss those priorities, and then come back after the summer recess and probably realign and reshift some of the timing. And there's a likelihood that some of the timing of some of the items might be bumped to 2018, given that we, you know, the workload in a number of cases is much greater than the resources that we have to complete that workload. So that's kind of in a nutshell. The recommendation is that committee would have a total of one item per quarter per section permitted to be added to the Committee of the Whole agenda, and that would then, we would get some sort of priority attached to that, and staff could report back at the following committee meeting with what those impacts are. And then there's a piece at the bottom of the report that talks about kind of a proposed procedure for adding referral items to COW agendas in future, which would require a vote by all of Committee of the Whole on each item that is being proposed to be added, as opposed to just being added by an individual member of committee. So that's my short or long-winded summation.
All right, thank you. Questions? Councillor Levy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I certainly appreciate the staff has a heavy workload. At times it's difficult to juggle priorities. My concern with this is it ties the hands politically of council to set our political agenda. So if something is a priority for us, and I agree we should have the agreement we should vote on adding to referral, not just shout it out at the end of the, there really should be a vote, but I think that we understand that staff works very hard, but I don't want to see our hands tied as far as what we can put forward on the political agenda. That's all.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rather agree. I think if the people sitting at this table are the people that set the agenda and we set the priorities, if something comes to us and we decide to put it on under one of these systems, 2 weeks later something comes up that's very important, oh, sorry, we can't put that on a timeline thing because we have to wait till a quarter is up. Well, when is that quarter up? Now we're going to have somebody going back into the archives and looking and saying, well, 3 weeks from next Wednesday, you can actually bring that up, but not tonight. It just gets goofy. I think we all understand the workload that our staff have. I think we can be respectful of that. I think parts of it are good. I don't think, I totally agree, we shouldn't just yell out, hey, put that on your agenda at the end of a section meeting. That's kind of goofy. So I think if we respect the basic rules, but we still get to set the agenda and what goes on in a priority, that is our job.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Lauder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully agree with what Councilor Lee and Councilor LaRose has just pointed forth. I actually like option A. I think that's great. Let's have 5 referral items there. And now you're actually asking council to be aware and to commit. So if we want to put on another something else important comes up, absolutely, let's do it. But let's take something off. Let's prioritize and let's make sure that it's reasonable. We do respect how much work staff has, and we're also cognizant that if something is on the report as summer 2017 and all of a sudden, it's not available to be done, it's going to be moved back. It's just communication. We just have to be told. So I actually like option A. I'll go on, and I also like option D as added on to it because Councilor Rawson actually did it today. He presented a notice of motion to our clerk and let her fully understand it. So option D says, let's do 5 at a time, but option D says it's got to be presented to our CAO prior so that he can assimilate the information, talk to our directors, and come to the next staff meeting when it's going to be brought forth, and it be brought forth in a meaningful manner that we can say, yeah, that's really important. Let's move it as one of our 5, and if we need to, we take something away. And finally, I absolutely love what you've put down, Jeff, with respect to your proposed procedure for adding referral items. I think that's a mandatory. Those procedures and the fact that it's brought forward, who brought it forward, why, when, and it's got to be voted on by council at the time before it's added. So I'd actually like to suggest option A along with D, a marriage of those two with the procedures that have been presented.
Are there other comments or questions? Stace, do I have a mover and seconder yet? Pardon? I thought it was the mayor and Councilor Rawson. Okay, thank you. You ready for the question? All those in favor? Pardon me? No, there was no amendment made. There were a lot of comments made. No amendment was made. Councilor Lauder?
I'd like to make an amendment that we vote on, that we accept option A and D together, and we fully respect and follow the procedures, the proposed procedure for adding referral items to council of the whole agendas.
Do we have a seconder? Councilor Rawson. Any further discussion? We're voting on an amendment. Does everyone understand the amendment? Would you like it read? Stacy, please.
I think what I heard was that Councillor Lauder is looking for that option A and D combined be approved.
Is that accurate?
If you want me to create a motion related to that and read it, I can do that, but if that's the general understanding, I think we're okay.
Well, I think so as well. Any further comment, Your Worship?
Just for clarity, maybe I'll ask the CEO, because I'm a little confused. I think I want to support it, but what's the difference between option A and D in your mind, CEO? Just to make sure I clearly understand what I'm voting on here.
Through you, Mr. Chair, option A was presented as essentially having a maximum of 5 items at any given time on each section, whereas option D essentially didn't have a limit, but that everything would flow through myself, and I would report back to the following committee the whole meeting. So I think what I'm hearing is we like the ability, or we like the option where we have a maximum of 5, but further that things do still flow through myself as CAO, and I would report back to the following committee of the whole agenda, or committee of the whole meeting, after discussion with the senior manager based on implications and timing. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, that's correct, and I could summarize that by saying vote for option A, and if you could add the parameters of option D into your proposed procedure for adding referral items to the Council of the Whole agenda, then that brings everything forward.
I would suggest to you that the whole thing is getting more and more convoluted by the moment. Stace, do you have a good, clear understanding of the suggested amendment?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to request a recorded vote on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? Could we have a recorded vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll just be one moment.
While Stacy is deliberating, I think at some point we're going to have a discussion about written motions from council. We waste, in my view, an awful lot of time in this kind of forum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, this recorded vote is specifically only on the amendment to the motion.
That's correct.
And clarifying that that would be that option A and D be recommended for council approval. Councillor Saunders.
Opposed?
Councillor Rawson.
Opposed.
Councillor Levy.
Opposed?
Councillor Lauder.
In favor?
Councillor Mayette.
Opposed?
Councillor Rose. Councillor LaRue.
In favor.
Mayor Marshall.
I'm opposed.
That amendment is defeated.
Given that the amendment is defeated, we are now back to the main motion. Is there any further discussion on the main motion, Your Worship?
So the main motion still needs an option, so I would look for a seconder to put forward option 1. Beg your pardon, A. Thank you, Doug.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the main motion actually did have an option, and it was option B. So Mayor Marshall would be needing to amend the motion.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. I'll look for a seconder to amend the motion to option 1. Sorry, A. Can we start using numbers? Thank you.
Is there a seconder for the mayor's motion? Councillor Mayotte? Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that motion is defeated. That motion to amend is defeated. We are now once again back to the main motion. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? I'm afraid to ask. We'll call the question then. All those in favor? Of the main motion. Option B. Okay, opposed? The motion is defeated. Thank you very much. Moving on to the fire. No, we're on to the next item now. Since the main motion was defeated, there's nothing to amend anymore. So it requires a new motion, an entire new motion, which you could certainly bring forward at another time. Moving on to the next item, Fire Shared Services Agreement. The recommendation is that the CAO Report 1705 regarding Fire Shared Services Agreement be received by Committee of the Whole, and that committee recommend to Council a 20-month extension of the Shared Services Agreement with the Town of Midland with a new expiration date of April 5, 2019, and that the clerk be directed to bring forward a bylaw for council ratification extending the current shared services agreement. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Your Worship, a seconder? Councilor LaRue, thank you. Before we open it to questions and comments, Jeff, would you like to make a few comments on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the report hopefully is self-explanatory. Ultimately, the current agreement expires August 4th of 2017. We are requesting an extension primarily to allow an opportunity for a review of emergency services in North Simcoe. I think the report certainly does outline, kind of what, how the program has functioned over the last 22 months, say, and I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Are there indeed any questions, comments? Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I just have one question and then a suggestion for a change, of course. And I'm looking that we've saved $12,000, which is good. My main comment was that Town of Penetanguishene service has been absolutely flawless. We haven't lost anything with the service. I think I could cover it off in the notes very well, so thank you very much, Mr. Ryan. What has Midland saved? Have they saved more, less, or the same?
To whom are you addressing your question, sir?
I'm going to see if the report was written by Mr. Ryan. No, it was written by Jeff Lees. So, yes, forget it. Mr. CEO.
If I might, Mr. Chair, I don't have those numbers in front of me. I would suggest that the financial savings for the Town of Midland is greater than the $12,000 that the Town of Penetanguishene has saved, but I don't have those numbers in front of me, so it's difficult for me to quantify what exactly that value is.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Could I continue on?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would actually like to know that, because if we're saving a tiny bit and they're saving a lot, then it's not really an amiable situation. But the second part I will say is the fact that I think a 20-month extension is not good enough, because we're talking about this 3 months in advance. A 20-month extension takes us to April 5th, 2019. Talking about that 3 months in advance will be January, which is a month after new council starts. So I'd actually like to see this have a 24-month extension, especially when I consider the fact that we at least are aggressive with respect to our budget and our settings and whatnot, and by that time frame, 21 months from now, we will be in a position but the Midland is even further behind with respect to their budgeting and whatnot. So they're not going to be in a position, as far as I'm concerned, to 20 months from now, talk about a new agreement. So I'd like to see this extension go for 24 months.
Well, what I've just heard, Councilor Water, is you discussing a motion that's not even on the floor yet, and I wonder if you'd oblige us by putting your intention on the floor. Then we've all got something to think about and discuss.
Well, actually, the motion is on the floor, is it not, or why are we discussing about it? Okay. Then I'd like to amend it to 24 months. Friendly amendment, 24 months.
It's not a friendly amendment, not in the contract. If you'd like to move an amendment, you're more than welcome, and we'll find a seconder for you.
If I could just ask, why would that not be a friendly amendment? Just changing 20 to 24 months?
Well, it's a business item, and it's the ruling of this chair that it necessitates a formal motion to amendment.
Okay, so I'd like to make a formal motion to amend, second paragraph, that the committee recommends to council a 24-month extension of the shared services agreement.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? I see no seconder, so the motion to amend fails. Your Worship?
Thank you very much. Intuitively, the town of Midland will save exactly the same amount as the town of Penetanguishene. This is administrative, so it doesn't fall below the chief and the administrative staff, so the savings will be equitable on both sides. But I like the 20-month extension. It allows us to make some evidence-based decisions. Besides the $12,000 that's coming up as staffing changes come and people retire and people churn out, it allows the chief time to actually look at that org. And right now we have two chiefs or deputy chiefs. If one of those two chiefs moves on to another position or retires, it allows our chief a chance to look at, do I need a second deputy chief, or can I survive with one? So I'd like another 20 months to have a look at this, see where it goes. It's our service levels have been second to none, so we have not diminished in any way, shape, or form our ability to serve the residents of Penetanguishene. We are saving a modest amount of money, and I'd argue with the opportunity as our towns grow and as staff complements change, that allows Paul some flexibility to probably be creative and even save us greater dollars if, in fact, the effort undertaking is actually to save dollars.
Councilor LaRose?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wonder if we could hear from the chief about this. I wonder if he could shed some light. He's probably closest to the problem.
Chief Ryan?
Well, no, I'm just kidding. It's been a challenge. I'll admit that, but I think that we've been able to manage that very well. I think there's been no decrease in service levels in Penetanguishene. Certainly, I think we've made some significant changes in Midland, and still some more to come. I think as we go forward, and if we have the efficiency review of North Simcoe, I think there's an opportunity to look at a bigger picture. Staffing certainly is that. Capital budgets, aligning capital budgets, and is there duplication of types of programs and things like that. So I think the 20-month extension, if the service review, because the town of Midland and Penetanguishene are both doing service reviews in-house, and then if we look at that efficiency review of the fire service, I think it then gives us an opportunity to look at a bigger picture, and is there a greater opportunity for some possible savings as we move forward with staff and things like that. It may also not look at, or down the road, and I'm just speaking hypothetically here, we may not look and see significant savings, but we could see certainly service enhancements and improvements in both municipality, and keeping tax dollars and that in check without, all four departments, or certainly the two urban centers, trying to run the same programs. And that I think there's an opportunity for some additional shared service. And you'll recall that I did bring forward an idea in 2016's budget proposal to look at sharing a training officer and that. And there's some things coming down the pipeline from the province where they're going to start holding municipal fire departments a little more accountable for certain things. So as an example, there's talk that they'll come out with a standard that says, Paul Ryan's been your fire chief for 17 years, and some will say that's too long, and some will say it's not enough, and then some will say, well, is he still competent to be the fire chief? So we're looking at the province coming in with some competency standards. So, we're going to need to look at training and certain other things. And I think there's an opportunity, certainly, with both of us or all four of us, depending on what the reviews show, to have some cost shared as we move forward versus all four of us looking for certain things, or all two of us, the two urban centers. So, yes, is it busy at times? Certainly. I used to tell my kids and my wife that the gray hair was from them, but I'm not so sure anymore. But anyways.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Larson.
When this came to us 2 years ago, I was sold on the cost savings. That's what the biggest push was from our point of view. We were told that service wasn't going to change, we were going to save money. Well, we're not, or very small amount. This 2-year extension in my mind, and then the 2 years is going to be a 24 months or 30 months. Let's just call it what it is. Let's just call it a marriage, and let's just say it is that instead of keep doing this 2-year trial idea. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we just did a 5-year deal for the building services agreement. That's working well. We say the service well, and everyone's happy, and we're all good. Let's just extend this forever if that's what we want, instead of calling this pilot pretend land. So let's make it forever, or I don't think the savings we'll think we're going to get is going to happen. It hasn't happened. That's what we're sold. So let's just call it a permanent relationship and move on.
Comments from anyone? Jeff?
If I might, Mr. Chair, just there was a few comments that I'd just like to clarify, just so that council has the information that to make an informed decision. The question was asked about what Midland is saving. I believe that it is more, as I said, simply because of the financial situation that they were in prior to entering into this agreement and the pay scale that their prior chief was at. So inevitably, that in conjunction with, they did have admin, I believe, in place. So I do believe that it is more than what the town of Penetanguishene is saving, but for good reason. There was a comment about 20-month extension isn't enough for Midland. In fact, it is enough for Midland. This is a conversation that the CAO in Midland and myself have had. And from a budgeting perspective, that's not a concern of either the CAO and or myself. If council wishes to extend it to 24 months or 5 years, I'm certainly open and amenable to that as well. I think that last comment addresses the most recent comment by Councillor Rawson, in that we certainly could do a 5-year agreement. There is an exit clause in the agreement, as folks know, if there was a need to entertain that as a result of a review amongst North Simcoe, then that certainly would be a possibility open to either council.
Thank you for those comments. Any further comments or questions? Are you ready for the motion? All those in favor? Put your hands up, please, so I can see them. Opposed? That's carried. Moving on to the next item, referrals to upcoming staff and agendas. That FCS endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. And I think you can read the list equally as well as I can. Are there any there that you think should be removed?
Fire service review.
Fire service review, thank you. I'm sorry?
I think we can remove taxi license, fire service review, referral items, and fire permit.
Okay. Everyone agree with that? Are there any that need to be added? Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to approve this? Councillor Rawson, Councillor LaRue. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Any questions from the media and or public? Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saunders. And next in front of us is a motion to adjourn at 9:20 p.m. Councillor Rawson, Councillor Levy, all in favor? And we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for attending. Have a great night.